Hey everyone, this is Marbozir, and as you might know, I went to PDXCON recently, and I figured I'll make a video with some of my impressions about the games that were announced there. So that's what this is going to be. Let's get started then, shall we? The biggest announcement was obviously Imperator Rome, which is one of the 2 new games announced at PDXCON, and the only brand new game announced that's developed by Paradox. And the shortest possible way to describe it would be that it looks a little bit like CK2, EU4 and Victoria having a baby, and that's what Imperator Rome is. The official public announcement didn't include any gameplay, but we were shown some gameplay behind the scenes. And while the build was obviously very early, what we did see actually looked quite promising. The biggest wow moment was when the map zoomed in, and we saw all the detail. However, I think one of the biggest surprises for me was how big the map actually is. Because it goes all the way to India, which makes sense if you think about it historically, but I still didn't expect it to be quite as big as it actually was. And in terms of numbers, we were told that Imperator Rome will have something like 7,000 cities, which is basically the game's equivalent of provinces from EU4. And then there are also actual provinces in Imperator Rome, which can have multiple cities inside them. And the cities can be controlled by different nations. Anyway, we do already know a few things, so for example, the game will have 3 different government types. That would be monarchies, republics and tribes. And there will be some major differences in mechanics between them. Anyway, one of the major concerns in mid-game and late-game, as you grow your empire more and more, will be the threat of civil war. Your troops will have loyalty, and they can become loyal to a general who might then start a civil war when he sees an opportunity to overthrow you and thinks he can actually win. So then, suddenly, you lose a lot of your troops, because they're more loyal to your general than they are to you. So you'll have to balance the factions within your empire and keep the loyalty of your most capable generals. Another thing is, while Imperator Rome will not be character-driven like CK2 is, there will be quite a lot of character management. The characters will have their own personalities, skills and attributes. There were also a few other things that sounded quite interesting, so for example military traditions. Each culture will have a unique way of waging war. So you might have different options available to you depending on which nation you are playing. There will be barbarians, as you might expect, obviously. There's going to be trade, there will be quite a few different trade goods that you will be able to acquire. It's still pretty early into the development, but I am very interested to see how the game is going to play. So the next big announcement was a game by Triumph Studios, which is Age of Wonders Planetfall, which is basically Age of Wonders but in a sci-fi setting. We were shown some early gameplay behind the scenes, and it actually looked pretty interesting. One of the major focuses in Planetfall will be the strategic layer. It looked like it will be quite a bit more complex than in the previous Age of Wonders games. And there will also be more to it than just settling the world. The backstory of the game involves a fallen galactic empire, so as you explore the map you will run into all kinds of things left behind by the fallen empire. There will be NPC factions that you will have to deal with, there will be hidden technologies, there will be doomsday technologies, multiple victory conditions, and more. Now, the tactical combat, which has always been one of the major strengths of Age of Wonders, also looked pretty damn good. There will be a lot of destructible environments. In fact, I was told that almost everything on the tactical map will be destructible. And not only that, there will be quite a lot of environmental interactions. So, for the simplest possible example, many of the battlefields will include cars, or at least some kinds of vehicles, that you'll be able to use as cover, but they can also blow up. That part gave me some major XCOM flashbacks, because obviously nothing bad can ever happen when you use a car as cover. Anyway, Planetfall still has quite a way to go because it's coming in 2019, however, I'm definitely looking forward to this one. So, next up, we got 3 expansions to existing Paradox games. And the first one is Hearthstone 4 Mend the Guns. Now, this one was still very early into the development. In fact, out of all the expansions announced to Paradox games, this one was earliest into the development. But some of the features that it will include sounded really damn good. The main focus of Man the Guns will be naval combat. So naval combat will be totally revamped. There will now be naval terrain, so different seas will behave differently and will be better suited for different fleet compositions. You will also have the ability to design your own ships and refit older ships. Fleets will split into task forces for better control. There will be a new naval spotting system and all kinds of other improvements that have to do with naval combat. The second huge thing about Man the Guns will be the return of fuel. So fuel will be making a comeback in Hearthstone 4, and it will quite obviously involve a major rebalance of the game. I'm actually quite curious to see how that's going to look in the end, because there weren't too many details just yet. Like I said, this was very early into the development. However, fuel is definitely coming back. Honestly, I always felt like it should have been there right from the start, but hey, better late than never, right? And the third big thing, and I was quite excited about this one, are new mechanics for democratic nations. Because they basically acknowledged that right now, democratic nations are not nearly as fun to play as fascist and communist nations, especially early into the game, so like 2 or 3 years before the World War actually starts. There's not nearly as much that you can do as a democratic nation compared to fascist and communist. So Man the Guns aims to change that. And that's it as far as biggest changes in Man the Guns go. Next up, we got Europa Universalis for Dharma, which will be focused mostly on the Indian subcontinent, with a lot of new mechanics involved there, but there will be quite a few other changes to the game, which I'm actually quite interested in. One of the biggest ones are estates. So the estate system will actually be made free, it will be part of the free update, but it will also get a major rebalance. It will basically be remade. We were pretty much told that right now the estate system just doesn't feel very fun to use, and I have to admit I've never been a big fan of it myself. So they aim to change that by just basically remaking it. Other than that, there will be a new government reform system, there will be new trade company mechanics, there will also be a new Cossack government. This one will be for owners of the Cossack expansion, since the estates system will be made free. And the policy system will also get reworked. Honestly, it looked like a pretty big expansion, even if you aren't interested in playing on the Indian subcontinent. I'm certainly interested in giving it a shot once it's out. So, the last new expansion is going to be Crusader Kings 2 Holy Fury, which, in developers' own words, aims to put the Crusaders back in Crusader Kings. But there will be a lot more to it than that. One of the major new features in this one will be Shattered and Random Worlds, which will start your game on a fictional map of Europe, with either a lot of small realms fighting each other, that's in case of Shattered map, or basically any kind of randomized world that you want. There will be plenty of randomization options, which will allow you to customize how exactly you want the map to be generated, and everything will be random, except, you know, the actual map of Europe. There will also be a lot of changes to Pagans, which actually piqued my interest because the last serious CK2 game I played was with Pagans. And one of the biggest new mechanics here will be the ability to design your own religion. We were shown some details here and it looked really interesting, with a lot of customization. But other than that, you will be able to join a pagan warrior lodge and work your way up the ranks, unlocking all kinds of bonuses. The whole personal combat system will be a lot more involved, from what we saw. There will also be legendary bloodlines, which basically means that descendants of great warrior heroes will have all kinds of bonuses that will match their accomplishments. And there will also be some historical bloodlines included in the game too. But the general idea is that you create your own ones as you play. And since we're on the topic of bloodlines, if you are not playing as a pagan, there will be sainthood mechanics, so pious Catholics will be able to become canonized, which will give their descendants all kinds of bonuses. And as I mentioned at the start, Holy Fury aims to put Crusaders back in Crusader Kings, which means Crusades will get a major rework, but that's actually going to be part of the free patch. But then there will also be some extra Crusade-related events in the expansion itself. I have to say, even though I haven't played Crusader Kings 2 in a pretty long time, this expansion actually got me quite interested. It looked like a really huge one. And since the last serious CK2 game I played was as the Pagans, I might give this a shot once it's released. Now, there was one more announcement at PDXCON, which for me was the most surprising one. Paradox will be making board games, or more specifically, 4 different board game designers will be making 4 different licensed board games for Paradox. That's going to be Europa Universalis, Hearts of Iron, Crusader Kings, and Cities Skylines. I got the chance to play 2 of them for a bit, Crusader Kings and Cities Skylines, and I have to say Crusader Kings felt really good. I was a little bit concerned at first how well it will reflect kind of the spirit of Crusader Kings, but it did a pretty damn good job at that. And actually, the Crusader Kings board game launched a Kickstarter campaign during PDXCON, and it reached its goal in like less than 12 hours basically, and then exceeded it by a lot. Now, some of these board games were more finished than others. The one that was earliest into development was Hearts of Iron, but the other 3 were playable. Hearts of Iron was the only one that wasn't actually playable. Anyway, if you are into board games, these 4 are definitely worth keeping an eye on. They will have different levels of complexity, they will be made for different numbers of players, and like I mentioned earlier, they are made by 4 different board game designers. So they will all have very different feel to them. And that's pretty much it as far as PDXCON announcements go. I have to say I really enjoyed the event. I got a chance to talk with so many different people, ranging from developers, other YouTubers and streamers I didn't have a chance to meet yet, as well as people I already met in person previously. That's always one of the best parts of these kinds of events, and PDXCON was no different. And that's pretty much it as far as this video goes. There was no actual hands-on gameplay during PDXCON, other than with the board games. So I have no gameplay to show you from all the new games and expansions, but as soon as there is any, you can expect to see it on my channel for sure. Especially since I'm quite interested in pretty much everything that was shown, to various extents. And having said all that, thanks for watching and listening, I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.